Okay, so ready to dive into a field that honestly doesn't always get the spotlight. But trust me on this, it's way more important and way more interesting than you might think. We're talking about the world of wastewater treatment. Yeah, wastewater treatment technicians to be exact.
It really is fascinating how something we kind of take for granted every single day, clean water, is actually thanks to this whole hidden world of these professionals keeping things running.
Totally. You sent over a ton of resources on this, by the way. Career guides, interview tips, even some stuff about how AI is shaking things up in the field. Our mission today, we've chosen to accept it, right? We got to break it all down. What's this job actually like day to day? What are the perks? Because I have a feeling there are some, and why might this be like the hidden gem, the unsung hero of the green job world, right?
Right. Well, absolutely. It's definitely a field that's only going to keep growing too,
Yeah.
especially now with people talking about water scarcity more and more,
Yeah.
and the environmental rules, they're just getting stricter.
Hmm.
So, yeah, big demand for sure.
For sure. Okay, so basics then. What does a wastewater treatment technician actually do? I mean, we get the wastewater part, obviously, but what does that look like, on a Tuesday afternoon?
Well, this guide you sent, it defines them as vital members of the team maintaining clean water supplies, which, I mean, it's pretty vital. Basically, they're the ones making sure those wastewater treatment plants are running how they should, so what we flush, doesn't end up polluting everything.
Right, right. And it's not just about like sitting in a control room looking at gauges all day. This is hands-on, right? You got to really understand some complex systems.
Absolutely. It's operating, maintaining, repairing. And we're talking a huge range of equipment. Pumps, filters, aeration systems, disinfection units. It's a lot. And as the tech gets more advanced, they're even getting into the automation side of it. They're really high-tech monitoring systems. It's changing fast.
Wow. Okay, so that's a lot to handle, but I think some people listening are probably wondering about the day-to-day reality here. Let's be real. Sewage treatment plants, they're not exactly known for their, pleasant aromas.
That's one way to put it. And yeah, I mean, the stuff you sent, it doesn't try to sugarcoat it. There can be some unpleasant smells, and you are working with some potentially hazardous materials. But it also talks a lot about the safety protocols, how seriously they take that side of things.
Like that OSHA has WOPR certification, right? That was mentioned in the guide.
Exactly, exactly. That one's all about handling hazardous waste safely, and it's basically a requirement for a lot of the jobs in this field. So it really shows you they're not messing around with safety. Plus, with all the automation now and the remote monitoring, you're not always right there in the thick of it, so to speak.
That's good to hear, really. It's like the field is getting more, well, modern, I guess, to deal with that side of things. And speaking of getting more advanced, the career path here, it's not what I expected. Seems like you can really, really move up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The materials you sent over, they highlight that,
Yeah.
like you start out assisting, then you're a junior level technician operating stuff on your own.
But then it just keeps going. It's not just climbing the ladder. It's like building a whole new ladder onto the first one. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Senior level positions, leading teams, getting into all the newest tech. They even mention like working with the engineers who design the systems, the plants, the whole thing. Imagine being part of that. Designing a system that, say, uses bacteria to get actual energy from the sewage. I mean, how cool is that?
That's wild. Okay, so this isn't just like a job. It's a whole career. You can get really hands-on with the tech stuff, but then also be a part of these big picture environmental solutions. It's both.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that actually brings up another point about the skills you need. It's more than you might think, honestly. Way more diverse.
Yeah, it's not just, what was that phrase in the guide? Turning wrenches.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You need a solid understanding of chemistry, for one. I mean, you're dealing with chemical processes all day long. Got to know what's going on.
And biology, too, right? Especially with those bacteria-powered systems you were talking about. That's like straight up biology stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Wastewater treatment, a lot of it is biological processes. Using microorganisms to break down the contaminants. So yeah, knowing how those tiny things work, that's key to making the whole thing efficient.
Wow. Okay, so we've got science, we've got engineering. This job, it really ties into everything. But I'm guessing it's not just about the science part, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
You've also got to be good with data. The stuff you sent talked about that. Monitoring systems, analyzing data, troubleshooting when things go wrong. It's a big part of it. And we can't forget communication, teamwork.
Right, right. So you have to be able to explain like technical things, but explain them clearly to people who maybe aren't, scientists or engineers, other people on your team, supervisors, maybe even the public sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a solo job at all. You're collaborating, solving problems together. Got to be adaptable. And speaking of adapting, that's where the AI stuff comes in, which honestly blew my mind a little. It's not just changing how the treatment plants work, it's even in the job applications now. Remember that RoleCatcher thing you told me
Oh,
about?
yeah. It's kind of crazy, right? It's like, okay, you have your resume, you find some job postings, looks good, you're feeling confident, and then bam, it's all online applications. And those AI things that are like scanning your resume, deciding if you're even good enough to talk to a human.
It's so common now, and it's why, honestly, you really got to understand how those AI systems work. They're mostly scanning for keywords, the specific skills they put in the job description, which, by the way, is where that role catcher thing can be super helpful, I got to say.
Right. It's like having a secret weapon or like a cheat code for the system. It analyzes your resume A&D, the job description,
Right.
sees how well they, match up.
Exactly. And then it can even give you suggestions like, hey, use this word instead of that word, or make sure you highlight this skill more. It's wild. But of course, then you get past all that, and then comes the actual interview.
And that's where those sample interview questions you sent from RoleCatcher, those were so clutch. It's like you might know all the technical stuff backwards and forwards, but then they hit you with, okay, tell us about a time you had to troubleshoot a critical piece of equipment under pressure. Or, my favorite, how would you ensure compliance with environmental regulations that are constantly changing?
Oh, yeah. Those are the real deal questions. You got to be ready for those curveballs. They want to know you can think on your feet, that you've actually dealt with this stuff, not just read about it in a book.
It's true, yeah. You can't just like memorize a textbook and be set. You have to be ready to actually solve problems, think on your feet. That's huge. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about what these technicians actually do, how AI is changing things up, the whole picture. But for someone listening who's maybe like, huh, didn't think about that before, what's the takeaway?
I think the main thing is it's a career with a lot of potential,
Mm-hmm.
like real, actual potential for growth, for making a difference, all of that.
It's funny, right? Because we hear about green jobs, but it's always like solar panels, wind farms, that kind of stuff. But wastewater treatment, that's got to be right up there, isn't it? In terms of like how important it is.
Oh, absolutely. It's essential. And it's only going to get more important, right?
Yeah.
Because the more people talk about water scarcity, climate change, all that, the more vital these technicians become. I mean, they're the ones making sure we have clean water.
Mhm.
And honestly, most of us just take that for granted.
It's true. Okay, so not only is it like a good career move essential for the planet, but also kind of cool when you think about it. Like you get to work with all this tech, turn, sewage into something actually useful. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's a ton of room for innovation in this field. It's not just how do we get rid of this stuff anymore. It's how do we actually use it? How do we make it part of the solution?
From ew to wow, that's what I'm hearing. Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive successfully completed. We went pretty deep into the world of wastewater treatment and honestly, way
Yeah.
more important, way more interesting than I think either of us expected.
It definitely surprised me, I got to say.
Right. Who knew? So next time you turn on the faucet or, flush the toilet, maybe just take a second to think about the people working behind the scenes to keep things flowing, keep things clean. They're the real MVPs, let's be honest. Until next time, everybody, stay curious.